When I say the word art, what do you think of? Some people might think of the famous David statue. Other people might think of the Sistine Chapel and its famous painted ceilings. And depending on what your definition of art is, you may think of this.
And I'm selling it here. The world's most expensive banana at $5,200,000. These are words I never thought I'd say. $5 million for a banana. It's your expensive banana, Jen, and the hammer is coming up. This is it.
I think no matter what you say, or whatever art piece or piece of literature, whatever you might name, I think we can all agree on one thing. That art, even though it is cliche, to a certain degree, is forever. Art is forever. I think art has such a integral piece and is so good at capturing the culture in which that art selection was created. It has a way of telling us what the culture is and was, and it allows us to learn from our past. For example, take one of Leonardo's inventions, right? You look at that piece and you can tell the creativity and the really ingenuity that was put into that. And it allows you to see kind of what society considered to be really ingenious and inventive, even though they are very inventive. But it allows you to, like I said before, kind of get a glimpse into that culture. And then you take the famous Campbell's soup painting, right? Some people might laugh and joke, oh, this isn't art. This isn't, this is just junk on a wall, right? Even though, I don't know, what my opinion of this piece might be, there is a part of me that looks at that and I can tell that that is where, society was. It was a very, very different design. Andy Warhol took a very creative turn with it, right? And again, no matter what your opinion is on Leonardo's piece and Andy Warhol's Campbell's soup painting, they're all art. So I've been rambling about all this. You're probably wondering, Isaiah, like the title of your video, what does, your question of what art is have to do with this challenge that you gave yourself? Well, to really understand that, we need to go back all the way to the very end of 2022. So obviously in 2022, we were very much out of the pandemic by that point, but really, that was when I started watching a lot of movies. And, throughout COVID, and then, like I said, into 2022, I had a movie pass at my local theater that I could go to unlimited movies, like as many as I wanted. And through a way like that, I allowed me to go to the theater and see all these movies that maybe I wouldn't have seen previously, right? I'm going to go see the big Marvel projects, being a big superhero fan. I'm going to see, the cool space movies and whatever, that comes out. But, sometimes you're going to have some smaller indie movies that come out in theaters, and maybe those would be the movies that I wouldn't normally, go pay a ticket for. But because I have unlimited tickets, sure, I'll go ahead and go see a movie that I really have had no interest in seeing, but I'll watch it anyway, right? And it was that sort of mentality of really exposing myself to the larger world of cinema and to actors, outside of Tom Hanks. You get Sandler, Brad Pitt, all these big names, and movies that, focus on, like I said, smaller named actors and with lower budgets and stuff. It really helped me gain an appreciation for the medium as a whole. And of course, watching all these new movies, I slowly started to realize that, hey, there's a lot of movies I just haven't seen, right? And I get that in my lifetime, I'm never going to be able to see every single movie that I want to, right? There's a lot of things that I'm going to end up missing out on. But it was one of those things where it's like, I'm really into movies now. I'm going to give myself a challenge. That challenge being, watch 365 movies in 2024.
You're completely out of your mind.
You're probably hearing that and you're like, well, Isaiah, that's easy. You said you like Marvel movies. Just put on every Marvel movie like 2 to 3 times each. That's a good chunk of them. There's other movies that you like. Just throw on all your favorite movies like 5 times. And guess what? You're probably like halfway there already, right? Well, let's put a twist on it. 365 movies in 2023 in 365 days, but they all have to be different and I can't have seen them before. They all have to be new watches. And of course, this all brings me, or us, to today. December 29th of 2024, as of the recording of this video, I have officially watched 371 new movies that I had not seen previously, all in the calendar year of 2024. Now, it'll be a separate video where I'm actually gonna go into like real depth about, you know, what movies I watched, what my favorite ones were, what was maybe some of the worst movies I saw in 2024. That's gonna be a couple more videos are gonna come out. We're gonna detail those. We're gonna go through them all together. But the purpose of today's video is I really want to go over kind of why I did this in the first place, and also just, you know, some of the really interesting things that I learned about, you know, kind of going through this journey together. So this is what I learned from watching, technically, at this date, 371 movies in, I don't know, less than 365 days. So the first point I want to touch on, and honestly the biggest thing of why I did this in the first place, is I mentioned it earlier, right? You know, not a huge movie person growing up, and I really wanted to dive into the world of cinema more, right? For example, spoiler alert, I guess a little bit, one of the movies I watched earlier this year for the first time was The Godfather. Never saw The Godfather in my life before, and that was something that I really wanted to hit because it's one of those, just such an iconic movie. And it's obviously referenced in lots of other pieces of cinema. People, you know, do quotes from it all the time, right? So that was one of those things that I wanted to do was, again, the first reason, and I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a sub first point, I guess, is why I did this is just, first of all, to get more familiar with the world of cinema. And my second point here, I think, is just as important, maybe more important than the third point I'm going to make after this. But the second point I wanted to do was I wanted to actually set a goal for myself. I am someone who, you know, it's very hard for me to reach certain goals unless I, you know, set like a certain mark for me to hit, right? So this was something I wanted to do just for myself, for my own personal growth, not necessarily in terms of movies, but just to prove to myself that, hey, if I set a goal for myself for this, and again, this is more of a fun activity, I guess, but setting a goal for myself that if I tell myself I'm going to do this one thing, I can work my way to that point, right? And again, I think prime example with all these movies, right? I'm obviously not going to watch 365 movies in one day. It's not possible. But it's something where, hey, every day, just watch a movie and you'll slowly log to that point to where I can get 365 movies. Now, there's probably some of you who are laughing at me right now because you're like, well, dude, watching movies, that's easy. Yes, to a much degree, yes, it is pretty easy. However, trust me, when you get to like October and you've watched 250 movies every day for the last 250 plus days or whatever, it's not fun anymore. Like, you have to find ways to spice it up, and that's something that did happen. I'll be honest, if you look at the trend of my movie watching, there is a very clear dip about in April, I think, somewhere, where I hit a low and I just did not want to watch any more movies because I realized what I was doing, and then slowly but surely it obviously goes back up over time. But that's one of the things that, like I said before, it sounds silly, right? And I don't expect everyone who's watching to understand that, but it's one of those things where it was very important to me that I wanted to see myself, again, if I could set a goal and I could reach it, then then there's nothing else stopping me from setting a goal for something else that's maybe more personal growth, or maybe just, you know, doing something else that, you know, I can't hit that goal if I really try. And the third and final point of kind of why I went on this challenge or journey, whatever you want to call it, is I really wanted to look into one specific note. How do movies have impact on our everyday culture, or even vice versa? How does culture have an impact on movies today? One of my favorite things that I was able to do this year, like I said, was watch all these different movies from all across these different decades, right? One of the favorite movies that I watched this year was from 1946. It's a movie called The Best Years of Our Lives, which details these three veterans, you know, who were in World War II together. And then they come back and they're having to readjust to civilian life. You know, one of them is a general. He has kids at home. One of them is a young man who was injured in the war and has come back with basically a disability. And then the other one is kind of a single bachelor gentleman. And they're all coming back from the same shared experience, right, in the war, but they have different lives at home. They're having to readjust to that. And it was such a beautiful movie. And then you transition to one of my favorite movies that I have watched this year, Dune 2. you know, a pure cinematic experience in terms of what CGI can do, cinematography, right? Again, story wise, very much, on par with the best years of our lives, but very different, right? It's all CGI. It's very much, a very big, massive movie, but it feels very different, right, than the previous movie I mentioned. But they're both excellent. And again, going back to the point, right? The Best Years of Our Lives was recorded in 1946, right? You're right in that era of the wars, and the people who are watching this movie in the theaters, they've all experienced the war themselves, right? And so this movie is coming out of a culture where the veterans are back home, they're coming back home, and they're really experiencing these things, and now they're watching their stories up on the big screen, right? Versus Dune 2, right? Obviously, none of us have gone to a sand planet with sandworms trying to devour us every minute, but it's one of those things where with the technology and what's being innovated in today's Hollywood, it allows us to put on these massive grand scale stories that allow us to be transported to another world, another dimension that allows us to dream and explore in ways that have never been done before. In today's society where you're constantly being bombarded on social media, news outlets, CNN, Fox, ABC, all these news outlets are feeding you news. You don't know half the time whether something is true, something is false, or you're having to double check things all the time, go to different sources and stuff. I think it's very, very easy to just get overwhelmed, right? And you start looking at the future and what can be. And, that is very, very nice. But I think movies are one of those very special pieces where it allows us to glimpse back into the past as well and be able to learn from our mistakes. And I think that's something that in today's culture, I think more needs to be done. And I'm not saying that movies need to be the medium that is used for that. I think there's other ways as well. But I think that's one of the beautiful things about movies is that people from all around the world, different cultures, different languages, different ethnic backgrounds and stuff, wherever you might come from, right? You can put on a movie. Maybe you need to do subtitles. I don't know what you might need to do. But if you put out a movie, anyone from anywhere around the world can sit down and enjoy that together. I think that's one of the beautiful things about cinema, right? Is in this world of differences and stuff that we have that is so hard just to have honest conversations with people, that movies are such a great way for people to come together, sit down, and just have a good time. So I'm kind of treating this video as a little bit of an intro slash outro, but it's kind of an intro to the rest of the videos that are going to be coming out soon. Like I said, with all these movies that I watch this year, I am going to be putting out some movies. I don't know quite exactly what they're all going to be titled and stuff, because again, this is the first video of all of them that I'm recording today. But I'm going to be, kind of doing a little ranking and stuff of some of the good movies I watched and the bad movies, like I mentioned earlier. But I really wanted to put this video out first, and just highlight, why I guess I did what I did with the 365 movies. And I'm not saying that I'm not challenging anyone who's watching this video or anyone who might see this, like I said, to do something similar to this, because trust me, this is kind of psychopathic behavior now that I'm looking back on it. But in all honesty, the biggest thing is, hey, just don't be afraid to go out and just watch a movie at the theaters, right? It's so easy to just turn on your phone, throw on Netflix, throw on Hulu, whatever your streaming choice might be, and just put on a movie, right? First of all, theaters need your money. Theaters are generally a failing business nowadays because so much streaming options are available. So go support your local theater. But also just go out there and throw on a movie, right? I understand maybe Pride and Prejudice is your favorite movie of all time. You've watched it 25 times, but hey, maybe there's another movie that come out that's very similar to Pride and Prejudice that you've never seen before. Go and watch that. Like, just see, you never know what you might find. Lastly, I want to thank all of you guys for sticking around and watching the couple videos that I have had on my channel. And thank you to all my friends and family who I know, obviously, who have had to listen to me talk about all the movies that I've watched this year at every family, get together and stuff like that. Thank you for letting me nerd out on you guys. So I'm very much looking forward to it in 2025. I want to repeat this now. I'm not intentionally watching 365 movies next year. I will still watch a lot of movies, and I'm going to try to put some videos out here on the channel. But very much so, I'm still going to go to my theaters. I'm still going to watch movies, right? If there's a lot of movies next year that are coming out that I'm very, very excited for. I'm obviously not doing this to myself again. That would be insanity. But I do want to, again, like I said, reach out to you guys again. Is just go to your theaters, right? Support them, watch some movies. So, yeah, that's about all I have. So, like I said, it's December 29th. Hope you guys have had a great 2024. I'm very excited to see, what videos I make in 2025, and we'll see what movies come out. And yeah, so make sure to like and subscribe and everything. So until then, see ya. Also, I'm making this after I recorded all my previous videos. I happen to be just looking on my Letterboxd. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I watched 371 new movies this year. That again, I'm counting towards that 365 challenge. In total, I watched 375 movies. And just to hark on that point of don't try this challenge unless you are mentally ready for this. I'm not trying to. This is not supposed to be a funny number. 669 hours this year watching movies. That is 669 hours I could have been doing something useful, like learning an instrument or something. So I don't know whether I'm going to talk about this specific stat in a different video. I just had to put this here because I looked this up and it's mind-boggling. So please do not try to do this challenge unless you are mentally prepared to literally spend almost 700 hours a year on your couch watching movies or in a theater. Anyway, that's it.